It was certainly a battle. Perhaps not a battle royale. This battle was just beginning. Even though the actual confrontation had been long ongoing, something had to give. The royals had done everything they could to stop the invaders. They had gotten into the living space, the quarters of the king himself. The battle was one as we will depict as we go. It was a battle of the royals and some haggard survivors of sorts who had magnificent methods that the king's forces did not understand. They were small, they could get into tiny areas, so they put their minds to work as to how to vanquish this foe. They tried everything they could imagine. They found out they could kill them with poison. Poisons that would not hurt themselves. But application of these poisons were a varied success, and the creatures continued to not only survive, they were fighting back. It became a battle. At first, the kitchen cleaners decided all manner of cleaning tactics would be attempted. Surfaces were to be washed daily. However, this proved to be problematic as the labor required was immense and frequent, exasperating the royals' efforts. It became a battle of diligence and patience, and not something that was easy to sell to the populace. But they diligently obeyed the commands, and all the villagers were applying the same techniques in their dwellings as they had taken it to a dwelling-by-dwelling battle. And in this particular dwelling, a battle royale ensued that would certainly rival that of Stalinberg. The surface areas were cleaned constantly with varying degrees of products. The one thing they had settled upon was vinegar. Vinegar strafings on a daily basis. All the surfaces were constantly bombarded with vinegar, which had a detrimental effect, as these creatures could not tolerate its reaction. However, this was a contact-only weapon and had nothing to do with the ability to reproduce was immense. They were fighting a numbers battle and a strategic battle of sheer force and determination. Knowing it was a reproductive battle, they were not against using tactics and employed chemicals from all sources that would hinder this reproduction, with very little and varied success at times. So, having success in that regard, there was still a constant battle. Having reduced the odds with some of these chemicals, it still seemed the creatures were having enough success to hang on. The ultimate victory was yet to be had by the royals, despite the constant barrage. But one new chemical was applied, and a technique that did promise great success. After scouring the area with baking soda dust, leaving it for a certain amount of time, and they found this dish soap of a certain variety was extremely effective. Eager to try out his new weapon, Adolf von Brock began the Great Dawn Attack. It was proceeding quite well, having secured the first corner quadrant with his process. Rather secure, and having established the left corner, which would have been the east corner, von Brock settled in from there. Not intent to assume success, he was going to analyze the results very carefully. The logic seemed to be good in the sense that the dish detergent had a chemical that would hinder their pheromones as they were walking, and that was central to their navigation and central to their command and communication. So in theory, the eastern corner was secure. Now the royals began the attack to the central district, the oven district. And that began to be prepared. The oven district was a great success for the attackers, as they had constant source of food, constant source of warmth, water, everything you would need. But this area was very important as well, and the royals began the attack, clearing the surface first. Proceeding to the back areas, they applied this surface technique to the stove area. Von Brunner's plan was to go left to the coffee pot, down to the corner, above where the rice and grain was stored, and electrical appliances seemed to be a place they liked to hide. This area was no man's land at the moment, but having positioned the east and the central units and control the water, the royals seemed to be in good stead. On paper, von Braun's plan seemed to be good. However, Koffer, the other field marshal in the area, had no confidence in the process whatsoever and was totally against it in principle. However, this being said, he did allow his divisions to participate in the ongoing assault. Now, von Braun's plan was not to destroy the enemies hidden beneath the catacombs, easily accessible to food and water, and also the catacombs were essentially not possible to bomb, and none of those things were possible. So von Braun decided the best tactic would be to make excursions into the open to get food, the good food, the quality food that they would be seeking, despite the fact they could possibly sustain themselves beneath the catacombs without coming out indefinitely. However, it was the aim to keep them out of sight, and von Braun's plan was to first make the trails impossible to recover the pheromones as they leave, or their trail back, and the constant wiping with this chemical that would reduce or remove the pheromones did prove to be problematic. The addition of baking soda in a dust form was also good. However, they were very receptive in noticing the flavor was not quite what they thought, as the baking soda resembled sugar, which is what they liked. However, components of the baking soda they were able to detect and would generally avoid. So the key there was to put the baking soda in such a manner as to be lightly dusted. This, of course, proved to be problematic as well. And it was Koffer who was recommending that you mix the baking soda with sugar, creating a bait situation, and that was something that von Braun was not quite ready to do. And so, while von Braun's attack took a total of 3 days of intense application and follow-through, Koffer wasn't still not impressed, but was only somewhat assistance in the matter. However, it did seem in retrospect that von Braun's approach did work, as it did seem to give them just a little breathing room. However, Koffer may have been more correct in his idea that he should go for the ultimate kill. It was von Braun's method that they eventually applied. So von Braun had a reasonable plan to keep these attacking aliens from being spotted and to be in the way, even though there was reasonable logic they had not gone away. There was no proof and no timetable to understand if their reproductive attacks would be successful, although they were assured by higher authorities that at some point that would be the case. So, understanding this, von Braun's attack seemed to make sense. However, Koffer, his plan seemed to make more sense to some people, as Koffer's plan was for a complete knockdown. He was not content with the slow process of the vinegar and the baking soda. Also, it was also very difficult to maintain standards with those processes continually being applied. And of course, Coffer and his units being equally dependent upon the area for their own men's food, and it was a battle of two generals who had to come to some sort of reasonable compromise on how to attack. But in retrospect, it does seem that von Braune's attack, if applied diligently, would probably be sufficient, particularly his attack on the pheromone trails, as this seemed to be the most likely way to hinder their progress in dramatic ways. Now, the baking soda would, in fact, as demonstrated, destroy their abdomens and essentially swell their bodies to a virtual explosive state, almost on contact. Even if not on contact, if brought back to others, it certainly would still be effective. So the baking soda certainly was part of the plan at some point. However, they were very astute at avoiding the baking soda, and Coffer was really high on the idea of baiting it with sugar. And that's where we are now, as von Braun is debating whether to do that. So in this instance, we had a king who suddenly found himself invaded in his own quarters by a microscopic, or rather small, pestilence that was of unknown origin, despite the fact that the king's armies were most efficient at fighting off almost any invaders for centuries and were firmly established as invincible for the most part. This was not exactly a battle fought the normal way. It was fought by individual citizens in individual kitchens, and there were many different attempts and different varied ways of attacking, but it was von Braune's attack and his approach of coming up with a unique way of wiping out the pheromones of these creatures, which was, in retrospect, the fatal blow. And all did, in fact, end well, and the pestilence was removed.